Hello again, it's me, Bindy, and joining me here today is Miss Jane Payment, who knows nothing about sponges.
Sponge what?
So before we get started, there are a few things you need to learn about sponges.
What is full of holes and holds water?
We don't have time.
A sponge!
You need to know where sponges live in order to find them.
I know where sponges live.
Oh really? You knew that 90 to 95% of sponges, like Callus spongia vaginalis.
Vaginalis?
Yes, Callus spongia vaginalis, the common tube sponge, the vase sponge, the yellow sponge, the red tree sponge, and the common sea squirt all live in salt water.
Like seas?
And oceans, yes.
In a pineapple, perhaps?
Yeah, no. Within the salt water, they live in coral reefs, caves, and abysses.
Well, where do the other 5 to 10% live?
They live in fresh waters, such as lakes and rivers.
Neato!
Now that you know where you can find sponges, you need to know what they look like.
They're small, rectangle, and yellow.
From almost all of them, they come in various colors, from blues and purples, to reds, to grays. They also are asymmetrical, or show radial symmetry, with cylindrical, globose, or irregular blotching.
And I'm sure they don't have a skeletal system because they're so squishy.
Actually, sponge's skeletal system is internal and made up of calcium carbonate, silica, or a fibrous collagen protein called sponging.
Well, holy Mrs. Bindy, know-it-all. Thinks she knows everything about Porifera. I can teach you a thing or two about Porifera.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You don't think I learned anything from sitting in the front row of every single class I've ever taken?
All right, ask me one thing about sponges, and if I don't know, I'll be very impressed.
Okay, what do you get when you cross a sponge and an eel?
You've got to be kidding me.
A shock absorber! A booyah shaka!
All right, we need to get back to this hunt.
Jane?
Steven, what? We need to get back to work.
So, how about them sponges? I mean, how are we going to catch the little swimmers?
Well, we aren't really catching them. You see, sponges only move about 1 to 4 millimeters a day. The larvae have small flagella that they use to move, but most movement is done through water currents. But we aren't really interested in catching those.
You're going to be so proud of me, Mrs. Bindy. Just you wait and see.
What do you mean?
Well, I brought bait for the sponges.
You mean you brought tiny bacteria for the sponges to trap in their ostia and pinocytes to filter feed?
I must have dropped it. I can't imagine eating tiny bacteria every day. They must never get full.
Well, not all sponges eat bacteria. Some of them are carnivorous.
Holy Moses, crazy SpongeBob coming out of the water to eat our fingers.
Do not tell me that that's the most craziest thing you've ever said.
Well, actually, on a regular basis, I tell my students to put their various clothing items on when they're getting a little rowdy.
What are you talking about?
Hold on! Keep your panties on. See how that works?
Like I was saying, there's a carnivorous type that's a sponge that eats people, crustaceans, that are attached to small spinnacles that act like Velcro on the sponge cells, migrate around the crustacean, and as it digests the crustacean extracellularly.
So I don't really understand the digestive system of a sponge.
Well, there isn't really a digestive system. All digestion is done extracellularly, and the water acts as a feeding and waste-removing system.
So one more question before we go hunting.
What is it?
Why exactly are we hunting for sponges? They sound really stupid.
The dried fibrous skeleton of many sponges like Spongia, Hippospongia, Euspongia, and are used by people for household uses. And the skeleton of some sponges like Eucalyptia are great commercial value and are used as decorative pieces.
So why don't we just take them all out of the ocean?
Even though sponges are rarely taken as food by other animals, crustaceans are found leading parasitic life on them, and some molluscules, like nudibranchs, depend on them for their diet. They're also used to serve as protective houses for animals like crustaceans, molluscles, and small fish.
I love sponges!
Now you are ready to hunt, young grasshopper. You've learned so much today, Jane.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? You do! Yes, you do!
One more thing you need to know about the classes of sponges. There are class Cachelia, Hexalinia, Spongia, and Sclerospongia.
Oh, right, class. I should probably give them like some stupid project where they have to like teach themselves or something.
So that is, people. Sponge hunting with Bindy. See you next time.
I'd like to be under the sea.